What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video is Week 10 tournament plays to target. So if you guys are interested in the cash plays, I had that video go out yesterday. If you guys are interested in getting my full cash tournament value, as well as our FanDuel plays and bets and props, check out our website. Very cheap subscription package, and has all that there as well. So let's get into it. Starting off, Josh Allen 7,700 against Indy. This one kind of feels like it could be a good game. Now, the concern that we're getting with Buffalo now is Keon Coleman already ruled out. Amari Cooper has been limited, missed last week. If Amari Cooper's in, probably not a whole lot of worry, but this Indy defense is notorious for giving up big plays. Josh Allen just been very consistent this year, looking like prime Josh Allen. Now, he did throw a pick last week, right? He's on a two-week stretch of throwing picks, but the pick last week against Miami was honestly Keon Coleman just, or I believe it was Keon Coleman had it right in his hands, and basically gave it to the Miami defender, which was Jalen Ramsey. I believe that's how that play went. So, I mean, you take that away and Josh Allen's getting 24 points, so hitting 3 times value. Same price here in a pretty clean matchup. And you look at Buffalo's offense, and they've just been pretty damn solid. My only concern with Josh Allen is the pass catchers, right? If Amari Cooper's out, that's 2 of his top 3 pass catchers out. And Indy's been pretty bad against the run, so James Cook potentially having a good game. But overall, Josh Allen is a quarterback that should be above 8K every week, and he's 7,700. Next is Kirk Cousins, 6,700. Now, this one, the reason Kirk's not a cash, right? He's expensive. He's 6,700. I believe this is the most expensive we've seen him this season, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so big time, most expensive we've seen him. New Orleans defense, like, really bad against the run. They're starting to get bad against the pass. The reason I like him as a tournament play, right? Obviously, Drake London going through his things. Still have Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod. Kyle Pitts has had an elevated role, finally, that we've been waiting for since his rookie year. If Drake London's out, that is a huge blow. But New Orleans Saints, you got to think about what they've lost in the last, 4 or 5 weeks. Marshawn Lattimore now traded. Lost Adebo, I think, to the season-ending injury. Kool-Aid McKinstry is out this game. So New Orleans is essentially missing their top 3 corners. Their offense just has not been able to successfully move the ball all game. They have their bits and pieces of it, but it's a division game, right? Earlier this season against New Orleans, saw Kirk Cousins kind of have a bad game, right? They still scored 26 points. He still threw for 238, but he didn't get any touchdowns in that one and only ends up with 8. Now, this Saints defense lost pieces, right? I mentioned their cornerbacks, but their offensive line has been really shaky, so I do like Atlanta's offense as a whole. And it's why Kirk's not a cash, is the Drake London, how good Atlanta's running backs could be. But I do think there's an upside with Kirk Cousins at his price point. And then going down, Aaron Rodgers at 5,700 against Arizona. I still think Arizona's defense is bad. They just play above expectation. They have a defensive-minded coach. I just don't think their defense is good. Overall, I think their defense is bad. They're just playing above expectation, in my opinion. And now you get a Aaron Rodgers who, even before getting Devontae Adams, is slinging the ball. Obviously, Allen Lazard is on IR. Mike Williams gets traded. So, you're looking at, I think Corley's probably going to be the wide receiver 3, maybe Gibson, a mix of those guys. But Aaron Rodgers has been just slinging the ball, right? Week 1 and 2 against some good, especially at the time, good defenses, now kind of differently, but thrown for over 200 yards every week since week 3, and we've seen multiple games with multiple passing touchdowns. Now the concern with this one is Breece Hall, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen having really, really good games. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball. Maybe the Jets defense kind of takes over, but I like the passing game of the Jets. So Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, love that aspect. I just really like Breece Hall and cash, so that's why Rodgers is there. And then we'll throw out the Mac Jones at 4,400 if Trevor Lawrence is a officially out. Mac Jones at 4,400, I think, is a tournament play just because of his price point. Obviously, Vikings have given up quite a bit of passing yards, but don't know what to expect out of Mac Jones, who his pass catchers are going to be. I would expect Davis and Thomas, but doesn't guarantee anything. So that's kind of it for quarterback. Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Mac Jones. Now going to running back, Saquon Barkley, obviously the most expensive running back on the slate. The reason he's not a cash is you have Kamara $200 cheaper that got 29 carries last week, 9 targets last week. And now Chris Olave is officially out. Cedric Wilson is out. So another 2 wide receivers down for the Saints. He was not in that Falcons game. That's what I was trying to remember. Because I think the Saints just threw the shit out of the ball on that one. But Saquon Barkley, going back to him, obviously in a smash spot against the Dallas defense that cannot stop the run, dealing with injuries. I don't know the status of Micah Parsons yet. Obviously, if Micah Parsons is in, that side of the field is going to be tough, but that's only one part. But when you have someone like Kamara that's cheaper, Bijan, Breece Hall, all these guys that are cheaper, it's better to just pay down there and save some money and go a different place. But Saquon Barkley, nonetheless, is in a smash spot. You can just see the rushing attempts, especially the last 2 weeks against those teams. Getting over 100 yards in all 3 of those games. Hasn't really needed to get work in the receiving game. But overall, I just think Saquon's in a smash spot. It's just the price point of why he's not a cash. CMC has got to be a tournament play because this is the cheapest that we're getting Christian McCaffrey. So he's definitely a tournament play for me as well. Jonathan Taylor, Buffalo is just giving up a lot of rushing yards for running backs. It is what it is. Now, Joe Flacco is the quarterback. Kind of see him last week. 5 targets. Wasn't really able to run the ball as efficiently as he has pretty much all season. And Minnesota's been the way they are. So I think Jonathan Taylor at his price point, if you want to get off of, Kamara, Bijan, Breeze, paying just, $100, $200 cheaper is kind of a way to get off of those guys. I will mention James Cook against Indy. Indy's given up quite a bit of rushing as well. And, I mean, between him and Ray Davis, Buffalo running backs have gotten quite a bit of fantasy points lately. So carries have varied with how Davis has played, but the receiving is also up there. It's just Buffalo's offense as a whole. You want to get some part of it. Already mentioned Aaron Jones in cash, so I'm not going to go back to that. I am going to go with DeAndre Swift. I think you could put him as a cash. I'm fine with that, but at home against a Patriots team to where they allow a lot of rushing yards to running backs as well, dealing with some injuries. My concern with DeAndre Swift is Bears missing 2 starting offensive tackles, so that is a blow to him. But with Khalil Herbert being traded, obviously Khalil Herbert really hasn't even suited up or played much, but it just kind of guarantees it's Swift and Roschon Johnson. But clearly Matt Waldron wants to get DeAndre Swift his carries. They paid him. That's why they brought him in. He has his games where he's going to get receiving work as well with Caleb Williams, and he's a guy that's gotten 20 plus points quite a bit lately, but he's been really, really consistent as far as the rushing attempts. So DeAndre Swift is worth mentioning in tournaments against that defense. Going down, Bucky Irving against San Fran. It seems like we're going to get McMillan and Shepard in the game. It's not confirmed yet, but it seems like we're going that way. But Tampa's used their running backs all season in the receiving game. See Bucky Irving getting at least 3 targets in those games. Still getting rushing attempts even with Rashard White and Sean Tucker. He's not guaranteed, which is why he's not a cash. But there is the upside, like Tampa's going to use the running backs in the pass game, and he's one of those guys that's going to benefit. Jaylen Warren, 5,300 against Washington. Washington been pretty bad against the running back in yards. See his last 2 games against the New York teams, where you get Russ as the quarterback, and he's gotten 21 carries, 7.9 on the dot for his numbers, as you could see the 2 yards difference, but the receiving work at his price point of 5,300, I I don't expect 15 points out of him, but to get 10 plus points, yeah, sure, worth mentioning. And then Tyler Algier, I think is always just going to be a tournament play for me, just at his price point. He's going to continue to get carries. Like, he's not going to see 10 plus carries every game, but he is going to get carries. He's going to have good matchups, and he has that touchdown upside. So 5,200, he's worth mentioning. And then going to wide receiver. So I will say A.J. Brown is a tournament play, tournament cash, just because of his price point. Devontae Smith has a very good matchup. Very good against zone. It's just his price is so high. It is so ridiculously high for Devontae Smith. I would, for the touchdown upside, just go A.J. Brown. Terry McLaurin, I think, is in a good matchup against Pittsburgh as well. I prefer somebody that we'll talk about sooner. And then Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, 72 and 7,000. In that one against Arizona, you could triple stack with Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a very solid play there. So getting exposure to both of them against, like I said, a defense that I think is bad. Like, they're just playing above expectation, in my opinion. George Pickens against Washington, on the contrary of Terry McLaurin and the other one that we'll talk about soon. George Pickens' price is just getting up there. And he is a kind of a boom or bust player, right? Like, he's going to get these 20-point performances, or, he's going to get held without. His last 2 weeks, he's only seen 14 targets, which is concerning, but the yards have been up there. Russ is not afraid to throw him these deep balls versus, kind of getting the Justin Fields aspect of it. So, but his price is ridiculously high, right? We saw 6,300 in his last game, which is 2 weeks ago. Comes back and he's up 500 in that one. So his price is just too high in my opinion, but the upside is there. Brian Thomas Jr., 66 against Minnesota. Obviously, Minnesota going to play a lot of man coverage. Brian Thomas is really good against both man and zone. The reason being injury and possibly having Mac Jones. Don't know what we're going to get out of him. But yet again, with him, his price is getting up there, right? We saw where he started at, kind of getting above this, and now we're staying at 6,600, which last week against Philly, where Jacksonville was able to hang into that game, 4 targets dealing with that injury. So it is risky at 6,600 with his injury, but it is a good matchup if he is if he's good to go. But you got to take the risk with Mac Jones. Darnell Mooney, I mentioned, could be a cash play if Drake London is out. If Drake London's in, I think Darnell Mooney's a solid tournament play. Obviously, his price is up there, but he's had some really good fantasy outcomes. Marvin Harrison Jr., I will mention, is a good run back against the Jets defense. Kind of sees all parts of the field. I mean, this is not where, like, I expected Marvin Harrison Jr. to not have a crazy rookie season. They just had a lot of, him personally has had a lot of tough matchups this season. Has another tough matchup here against Arizona, but this does seem like it could be a game where he could shine, but it is risky, right? Obviously, for his price point, like, started the season at 7,200, we have him down to 6,400. Like, his price is very intriguing, which is why I think he's a good tournament play, especially in a run back situation. Continue to go down. I will mention Calvin Ridley. Chargers dealing with a couple injuries defensively, where I think it opens up Calvin Ridley. Plus, Will Levis is back at quarterback, so there's a good chance they just sling it with him. So I think he's definitely worth there in tournaments. Keenan Allen against the Patriots. I think he's just got a good matchup against New England. New England giving up quite a bit of passing yards as well. His price point at 5,400 is not bad. Juwan Jennings, I believe I mentioned him in cash, but I think he's a good cash tournament play. His numbers are just really good. Tampa Bay have seen the history of them just giving up yards. I mean, Juwan Jennings, you look at his numbers, you take that 49.5 point game away, he's not doing much, right? But Brandon Ayuk out, Ricky Pearsall going to be in. I think he's a good tournament play at his price point at 5,100 against a Tampa Bay defense that gives up quite a bit of yards to receivers. Quentin Johnston, Alec Pierce, both these guys at 4,900. I think Indy's offense has moved better against zone than man. That's what Buffalo runs. So Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Anani Mitchell, all three of those guys are playable this week. Quentin Johnston, just his numbers are pretty good, especially in the matchups he's going to see against Tennessee, where him and Ladd McConkey are both in pretty good spots, in my opinion. And Johnston's just, 1,000 cheaper. And I mean, he's gotten some upside games this season somehow. Only 18 receptions. That is the big concern. So you're looking for the big play out of Quentin Johnston or a touchdown to get you there at 4,900. Continue to go down. Demario Douglas going to see Kyler Gordon against the Bears. I think it's a good matchup for him. Drake May's just been throwing the ball quite a bit, being mobile. Jaquan Brisker still out for the Bears defense, so I do think Demario Douglas has an opportunity at his price point to have, an easy 12-point game against the Bears, and it kind of pays off at his price point. Noah Brown, 4,300 against Pittsburgh. I mentioned I like Terry, but I think I like Noah Brown more for his potential. Obviously, the upside is with Terry, but you see the last 2 weeks, he's gotten 12 targets over 50 yards in both of those games. Obviously, the big catch against Chicago, but Tyreek Stevenson for that one, which basically pays him off, right? He gotten 12 points out of that, so he was sitting at 4.3, gets that, goes to 16. But I think he's in a good spot there. Jalen Naylor, 4,200. His numbers against man are just slightly better than Jordan Addison. Jacksonville giving up a lot of yards. Obviously, the targets really haven't been there as much for Jalen Naylor this season as someone like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. But I do think he's kind of made the best of what he's gotten lately. It's just a risk of him not getting on the field as much and targets, but I think it's a really good spot for him. Tampa Bay wide receivers, I'm looking at Sterling Shepard, though, against San Fran. Ward out for San Fran, so there is some opportunity for Tampa, and Baker is still slinging it. He's not afraid. He does not care. He's going to sling it. They are on a short week, which is concerning, but he is going to be good to go, so 4,100, Shepard is definitely playable. I will mention Troy Franklin. It is a tough matchup for him, but I think the opportunity is there. I'm just going to throw it out. If he goes off, I'm going to be really, really happy. I'll just say that. If he does bad, it doesn't really hurt me at 4K. And then Aaron Mitchell at 3,400. I mentioned just Indy's better against zone defenses than man, so him getting on the field with Pittman out definitely gives some opportunity at 3,400. Moving on to tight ends, so I mentioned all these guys you could consider for cash. Kelsey, Kittle, if you want to throw them into tournament, you can. Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hockenson, all these guys in these range are definitely tournament plays. Indy giving up quite a bit of fantasy points to tight ends. Kyle Pitts, if Drake London is out, I think is in a better spot than with Drake London in. But Kyle Pitts, I mean, besides last week, we've seen a better Kyle Pitts. Obviously, just one target in the game against Dallas. But, against Tampa, twice. In Seattle against Carolina, gotten 10 plus points out of Kyle Pitts. So it's not a huge ceiling type of tight end, but a guy that can probably consistently get you 10 plus fantasy points. And then TJ Hockenson in his first game back. I'm just going to assume this isn't going to load for us. So TJ Hockenson, 2 or 3 targets in that game. Now facing a Jacksonville defense that gives up a lot of yards, not only to wide receivers, but tight ends as well. They played slightly better against running backs as far as rushing yards. So kind of looking for the pass game. And TJ Hockenson at 4,700 is definitely playable. Cole Kmet against the Patriots. That's, Patriots are a defense that are just giving up a lot of yards. A few guys traded off that team. Obviously, their corners are kind of still the same. But that inside of the defense is slightly different. So Cole Kmet 4,300 is a tournament play for me. Hunter Henry, same thing. Bears just pretty consistent of what they give up to opposing tight ends. And we've seen Hunter Henry kind of be a guy that gets some high targets, especially with Drake May. So at his price point of 3,900, he's been a guy that I've liked all season. Glad he's having a pretty good season finally. It's paying off for me in best ball, so I do appreciate that. So he's playable against a Chicago defense that's just pretty consistent of giving up a good amount of points to tight ends. Nothing crazy or ridiculous, but 10 to 12 points has been kind of the norm for them. Juwan Johnson, just a really good matchup against Atlanta's defense, who gives up a lot of yards to opposing tight ends. Obviously, with Taysom Hill being there, that it hurts Juwan Jennings' upside, but Taysom Hill is just going to be used pretty much everywhere, especially with the injuries to the Saints wide receivers. So Juwan Johnson, I imagine, is still going to see the field quite a bit. And then I'll throw Will Dissly out there. He just, I guess, continues to be a cash play. I just don't like him for cash per se, but a big tournament is there. First price point of $3,100. A guy that could get you 3 or 4 times value in a Chargers offense. A team that runs quite a bit of tight ends just being on the field, play action, stuff like that. So Will Dissly just being on the field is what makes him playable at $3,100. And that's pretty much it for tight ends. I will mention you could play Denver tight end. I just don't want to take a risk of picking either one of those guys. So hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I will be live tomorrow going over the slate before we start. So if you guys are interested in that, tune in. Probably live around 10:15ish, somewhere around there. We'll go over the slate, get the injuries, and go over those. So hope you guys did enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.